Natasha, and thank you so much for joining me today. Well, today, as usual, we have a gorgeous, easy card to create. Now, I'm going to start out by using these wet cement panel cards. Now, these are actually, these come from Joggles. Joggles is a US-based company based in Rhode Island, I believe, and these panels are, I think they're not necessarily meant for cards, but I've kind of fallen in love with the size of these. Now, I think they're a good solid weight, and they're meant for, mixed media, and they fit in a business-sized envelope, and so I am going to use them today. They measure 4 by 9¼ inches, so when I fold them over, it really does make a cool size for a card. And I do love this wet cement colour. It's sort of not craft and it's not grey. I really like it. Anywho, I am starting off from using a die from the Master Layouts 2 set, and this is a card front. So actually I just cut one of those panels in half. Instead of folding it in half, I cut it in half, and that is going to give me a card front as well. Now this panel that we've cut it out, this has the gorgeous stitching. So this would look cool if you sort of placed it back on there. So this will sit like this on top of the card, but if you popped that in and then popped up that top layer, I think that would look really cool, and that way you would also get the stitching as well. We're going to do something a little different today, but I do think that would be a cool option. So now that we've got the base under control, I'm going to take some of my vellum. This is the Lawn Fawn vellum. Now, not all vellums can be heat embossed with. Some of them will just crinkle up and you will melt them. But I do love the Lawn Fawn one. It's a bit heavier weight vellum, which I also love, but you can run this through embossing folders. You can run this with a heat gun, and that is the reason that I love this one. Now for this technique, I'm going to be using the skeleton leaves. This is the mini one from Gina. This often sells out. It is hard to get a hold of, but if I can, I will link it down below for you, along with the rest of the products. But this one here is a very cool stamp. Now I'm going to take a couple of these little leaves. I love that it's a smaller stamp set as usual, because that means we get, good value for money, and these stamps are gorgeous. There's nothing in here that I don't like about this stamp. I am using some anti-static powder from that little anti-static powder bag, and some VersaMark, which is just a sticky embossing ink. There are a few good ones out there on the market, but this one has been a tried and true. I've actually come back to this one. It became more readily available where I am again, so I do love my VersaMark. Now I'm going to stamp out these leaves and put some white embossing powder. Now with these gorgeous skeleton leaves, I'm going to use these super fine. I actually only have the super fine embossing powders because, as I have mentioned before, they have just a finer grit of the embossing powder, and this means that it's going to get those detailed little lines. But if I do stamp something solid, it's going to attach to that no problem. So for me, this is a no-brainer and a win-win. I always buy the superfine version, if there is one available, of course. Now at this point, we've done the 3 in white, so while I put that aside and put the embossing powder back in, and it's nice and cool, I'm going to flip this over and do the other side. So this is the other side of the vellum, and I'm going to stamp some more leaves in between the spaces that I sort of don't have them already. Now these will overlap, of course they'll overlap, and I like that look too. Now at this point, I was just sort of guessing. I cut out a piece of vellum that is a bit bigger than what I need, and I am just filling in the spaces that I think. I'm going to add some gold embossing powder on this side. I think bronze embossing powder would look gorgeous. You could do this with 2 beautiful colors. Imagine like a yellow and a lime green or something, or even like a lime green and an orange with the contrast of those two. That would look gorgeous. But I don't actually have too many embossing powders. I actually do have a couple of colors, but in general, I don't have space to store a whole lot. So I do have pretty limited options, but that's okay because sometimes that is the best way that I create. Now, actually, at this point, I realized I was sort of missing a spot here, and when I held it up against the window, it just wasn't quite right. So it's okay to know that, yes, you can come right back in again, and I'm going to stamp one of these leaves. This is on the white side, so the white is facing up, and I'm just going to stamp another leaf so that I can actually see it in that window. It will cross over the other one, but actually you won't end up seeing the other one, so we're okay. I put it on this little piece of vellum just to quickly pop it back into the container, and then I will melt this. Be aware that this may melt the other side, so don't have your fingers on the embossing on the other side because it will potentially melt it a little bit. Not drippy melt, but like if you put your finger in it, you'd probably get a fingerprint. So be aware. Then I am popping on some double-sided tape, the 1/4 inch, that is going to go around the edge here nicely. This is just the scrapbook.com one. And then this is where you can pick the piece that is going to look the best for your window. And I was trying to decide, this is the gold side up, so you can see that gorgeous, shimmery, shiny gold. But if I put it the white side up, you lose that shimmer from the gold, and it almost looks a little bit more copper from the back, I would say. So this is what it looks like having the backing on it as well. Of course, it'll be lifted up a little bit, but in general. Or do you like this side better where you can see the shiny gold? Now, I must admit, when I can't pass up that gorgeous shimmer. I do find that with the cards, with card making, I try and add, it can be a little bit different for sympathy cards, but in general, I try and add, one of each element. So some sort of texture, some sort of shine, some sort of, you can add in a few different things that make your card interesting and sort of pull the eye in. And so I think I went with the gold side up for this one because you can still see the white perfectly well. So once I have put it where I want it to go and it's going to reach all those pieces, I do have some that I need to trim off at the top. So I just sort of angle my scissors down underneath it and then trim away the excess. You could definitely line this up beforehand and cut it before you glue it on if you wanted to. But then I'm going to add some foam tape. Now this is the 1/4 inch, the 1mm from scrapbook.com. I actually do want the 2mm. I want that little extra bit of lift in this gorgeous but simple card. So all I do is I just double it up. I just run it between my fingers and double it up. You absolutely can buy the 2mm foam as well. I love that they have the options they have 1mm, 2mm and 3mm. Now I buy the 1mm because I can make all three of those the other two options just using the one roll. As I said, space is an issue for me, so I have to think about these things, but in your craft room you may not have to. I also do purchase this is the 1/4 inch, and they also have a 1 inch, which I absolutely love both of those, so highly recommend. They also come on fantastic sales because they are the scrapbook.com brand. They're often at least 40% off. Anywho, I have got the Vibrant Sentiments from Gina here, from the Master Layouts 2, which is the same one I used at the beginning. I am going to stamp out a sentiment. Now this is I think it's the soft stone colour, and I have the 2 banners from the Master Layouts 2, and I'm going to stamp, there's 2 different sizes, a smaller one and a bigger one, and at this point I was like, it's a bit weird having the white, and the soft stone did match quite well, but I thought actually I would just cut it out of that background piece that we had, and I would cut out some banners of the same colour. Then I would do the white heat embossing, and that sort of all ties in a little bit nice. Now, for sure, it is going to be the wet cement colour on top of the wet cement colour, the cardstocks, but I actually like the look of it in the end. This is a gorgeous, simple, but really stunning and eye-catching card, I think, by the time it comes all together. Now, if you want to hide the sides of your foam tape, like I have here, I have 2 layers, so this is 2mm. I just take this is a pit pen, the Faber-Castell pit pens, and they have India ink in them, which is a permanent ink, and I just go around the edges so that it all matches pretty much the same as the card, so just a little bit less distraction. And then I'm going to take off the release paper. I line this up with how my card is, and I just have it sitting flat against my desk so I can get pretty much lined up pretty well, and then I can press everything down once I have it in place. And then we just need to add a little finishing detail. Now I do think a little piece of twine would look gorgeous on this, but I'm going to go for the sort of faux twine option today. This is the Pretty Bows die set. I have used this in a few videos, but I am finding this very handy. I have die cut 1 in the wet cement and 1 in plain white cardstock, and I'm going to layer these up. Now, the wet cement on top or the white on top. This was another one of those decisions that I was like, I feel like I needed some help. Would you have done it this way or the other way up with the other wet cement on top? So then it would be this way with the white just peeking out, because I will just offset them ever so slightly. Well, I chose to go the wet cement on top. I thought the white stood out just a little too much and was a little too distracting. So I've gone the same colour on top, and just offset it ever so slightly. It doesn't even have to be perfectly either. Then I will pop this over to the side. As I said, I think a nice bit of twine, if you had the right coloured twine or like raffia or something like that, would look gorgeous over here. Then I go around the foam that's on the back of the sentiment. I just did 1 millimeter here, so very nice and thin, just a very slight amount of lift, and then pop this down. And I think the stitching there helps it stand out well too. So a simple but gorgeous card with double heat embossing. I hope you have enjoyed this one today, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thanks, bye!